The dog tag burned cold against Sarah Mitchell's chest as 17-year-old Tyler Morrison's fist wrapped around her hair. Yanking her head back so hard, she heard her neck crack. In that split second before her body remembered what her mind had tried so hard to forget, she saw Rachel's face, not Tyler's, and the desert sand turned to linoleum. 8 days. That's how long Sarah had lasted as a history teacher at Roosevelt High before everything went to hell. She'd survived 3 tours in Afghanistan, watched her best friend die in her arms, and came home with medals she couldn't bear to look at. Teaching was supposed to be her redemption building minds instead of destroying bodies. She should have known better. War doesn't end just because you change your uniform. That morning had started like the others, with Sarah standing in her small apartment bathroom, staring at her reflection. The woman looking back still had the same sharp green eyes that had earned her the nickname Hawk in her SEAL unit. But they were softer now, deliberately softer. She'd practiced that look for months in therapy. "Build, don't destroy," she whispered, touching the dog tag she wore under her blouse. Rachel Thompson, KA 2019. Her therapist said wearing it was unhealthy, but Sarah couldn't let go, not yet. The drive to Roosevelt High took her through North Philadelphia's forgotten streets. Boarded windows watched her pass like dead eyes. Graffiti screamed silent frustrations on crumbling walls. This wasn't the war zone she'd left behind, but it carried its own kind of desperation. The school itself squatted on the corner like a concrete bunker. All sharp angles and barred windows. The American flag out front hung limp in the September humidity. Sarah parked her 10-year-old Honda between a rusted pickup and a BMW that looked absurdly out of place. That should have been her first warning. Wealth didn't belong here unless it was taking something. Inside. The hallways hummed with teenage energy. Groups clustered against lockers, eyes tracking her movement. She'd felt this before being assessed, measured, categorized as threat or prey. Her military training whispered observations, exit points, blind corners, potential weapons. She pushed it down. These were kids, not combatants. Her classroom was tucked in the back corner of the second floor. Room 237. Previous teachers had left their marks motivational posters with curled edges. A world map with countries that no longer existed. 32 desks arranged in rows like soldiers. Sarah spent the first hour rearranging them into a horseshoe. Connection. Her education professors had said, "Make connections." The first period bell rang at 7:45 and they filed in. 32 teenagers carrying invisible weights. Sarah recognized the look she'd seen it in refugee camps, in villages caught between opposing forces. That careful blankness that said they'd learned not to hope too hard. "Good morning," Sarah said, standing at the front. "I'm Ms. Mitchell. Before we talk about history, I want to know about you. What's one thing you want to change about the world?" Silence. Then a girl in the back. Emma, according to Sarah's seating chart, raised her hand tentatively. "Less violence," someone snorted. "Good luck with that in this shithole." The voice belonged to Tyler Morrison. Sarah had been warned about him in the teacher's lounge quarterback. Honor roll, untouchable. He lounged in his desk like he owned it, possibly because his father practically owned the school board. Broad shoulders, perfect teeth, cold eyes. The kind of kid who'd peaked at 17 and would spend the rest of his life trying to recapture this feeling of power. "That's an interesting perspective, Tyler," Sarah said evenly. "Do you think violence is inevitable?" He leaned forward, and she caught something in his movement, the calculated aggression of someone who'd never faced real consequences. In some places, yeah, some people only understand force. The words hit her like shrapnel. Some people only understand force. How many times had she heard that justification? How many times had she believed it? "Let's explore that," Sarah said, turning to write on the board. Throughout history, violence has been both a tool of oppression and resistance. The question is why they hired another bleeding heart teacher who thinks she can save us. Sarah's hand paused on the board. In her peripheral vision, she saw Tyler's crew, 3 boys who dressed like him, moved like him, radioed silent signals with their eyes. Pack behavior. She'd seen it in insurgent cells, in Stop. These are children. "I'm not here to save anyone," Sarah said, turning back. "I'm here to teach history. Your story is part of that history. What you do with it is up to you." Something flickered across Tyler's face. Surprise. Maybe. Or calculation. The rest of the period passed in tense cooperation. Sarah talked about the American Revolution, about ordinary people facing impossible odds. She watched Tyler the whole time, saw him passing something to the boy beside him. A small packet that disappeared into a backpack. After class, as students filed out, Tyler lingered. His crew waited by the door like sentries. "Nice speech," he said, stepping close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive, aggressive. "But you should know something. This ain't your typical school. We got our own rules here." "Every place has rules," Sarah replied. "Question is whether they're worth following." He smiled then, and it was all teeth. "You seem smart. Military. Right, I can tell by how you stand. Seen plenty of you try to play teacher. They don't last long." "Is that a threat?" "Nah." He backed toward the door where his boys waited. "Just a history lesson. Ask about Ms. Johnson if you want, or Mr. Petrov, or that counselor. What was her name?" He snapped his fingers. "Right, Martinez." All thought they could change things too. They left, and Sarah stood alone in her empty classroom, heart hammering against her ribs. Not from fear she'd faced down Taliban fighters in narrow alleys. This was different. This was recognition. She'd seen this before, in villages where local warlords ruled through fear, where corruption wore a legitimate face. The next 3 days confirmed her suspicions. Tyler and his crew operated with impunity. She watched them conduct business in hallways, saw younger students hand over money or small packages. When she reported it to Principal Jenkins, a thin man who sweated through his shirts by noon, he barely looked up from his computer. "Tyler Morrison is a good kid," he said, the words sounding rehearsed. "Star athlete, honor roll. His father's done a lot for this school. Maybe you're misinterpreting teenage behavior. I saw him take money from a freshman. The kid was crying." Jenkins's eye twitched. "Did you actually see money? Can you prove it wasn't lunch money or something innocent?" Sarah knew that tone. She'd heard it from commanders who didn't want to know about civilian casualties, from officials who preferred ignorance to accountability. "You're telling me to look the other way. I'm telling you to focus on teaching history." He finally met her eyes, and she saw fear there. "That's what we hired you for. That's all we hired you for." Thursday morning, Sarah arrived to find her car vandalized. Nothing dramatic, just a broken taillight and a note under the windshield. "Some lessons are better left unlearned." Generic threat. Amateur hour. If they wanted to scare her, they'd need to do better than property damage. But it wasn't about scaring her. She realized during second period. It was about establishing dominance. Tyler walked in late, made a show of crumpling up a tardy slip, tossed it at the trash, and missed. When Sarah asked him to pick it up, he just smiled. "Make me." The classroom went silent. 31 students held their breath, waiting to see if the new teacher would bend or break. Sarah felt the familiar heat rising in her chest muscle memory of a dozen firefights, of moments when violence was the only language left. She breathed. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. A technique her therapist had taught her. After class, Tyler. "We'll discuss it then." "Nah, I'm good." He turned to his crew. "You guys smell that smells like fear." Emma Watson, the quiet girl who'd spoken about wanting less violence, suddenly stood. "Just pick up the paper, Tyler. Why do you have to be such a what?" Tyler was on his feet now, moving toward her. "Go on, Emma. Finish that sentence." Sarah moved without thinking, placing herself between them. "That's enough." "Or what?" Tyler's face was inches from hers now. She could see his pupils dilated. He was high on something. "You gonna give me detention, call my daddy." "Good luck with that. I'm going to ask you to leave my classroom." "Your classroom?" He laughed, and his boys echoed it. "Bitch, you don't own anything here. This is my—" Sarah's hand moved to her collar, an unconscious gesture, and her fingers found the chain of the dog tag. Tyler's eyes followed the movement, saw the hint of metal. "What's that?" "Some kind of good luck charm." Before she could react, his hand shot out, grabbed the chain, and pulled. The metal bit into her neck as the chain snapped. Rachel's dog tag clattered to the floor, and Sarah's vision went red. Not angry red, desert red, blood red, the red of Rachel's last moments. "Oops," Tyler said, grinding his heel on the tag. Sarah didn't remember moving. One moment she was standing still. The next she had Tyler's wrist in a joint lock that had him gasping. Her other hand pressed against his shoulder, ready to dislocate with 2 pounds of pressure. "Tyler," one of his boys started forward. "Nobody move," Sarah said, and her voice came from somewhere else. Somewhere darker. The teacher was gone. The seal was back. If you've ever hit that breaking point, where training overrides thinking, where your body knows what to do before your mind catches up, comment below. Sometimes we carry skills we pray we'll never need to use again. Let him go. Another boy was filming with his phone. Of course he was. Sarah blinked, saw Tyler's face young, scared now. Just a kid, despite everything. She released him, stepped back. Her hands were shaking. "Get out," she said quietly. Tyler rubbed his wrist, and the fear in his eyes morphed back to rage. "You just fucked up. You put hands on me, you're done. My father will—" "Get out," and they left. Tyler cradling his wrist dramatically, already spinning the story. Sarah bent to pick up Rachel's dog tag. The heel print was visible on the metal. Emma approached cautiously. "Ms. Mitchell, are you okay?" "Everyone sit down," Sarah said. "Open your textbooks to Chapter 3. She taught the rest of the period on autopilot, discussing the Boston Tea Party while her mind raced. She'd lost control. 8 years of discipline, of careful restraint, undone by a 17-year-old punk. Rachel would have laughed. "Always were too protective of me. Hawk." When the bell rang, Emma lingered. "Tyler's going to come after you now, him and his crew. They don't let things go. Let me worry about that." "No, you don't understand." Emma glanced at the door, then back. "Last year, Ms. Johnson tried to report them for dealing. They Did things to her, followed her home, killed her cat, posted pictures. She swallowed. She lasted 2 weeks after that. What exactly are they dealing? Emma shook her head. I've said too much. Just be careful. And maybe you should apologize, even if you didn't do anything wrong. It's safer. After Emma left, Sarah sat in her empty classroom, holding Rachel's damaged dog tag. 8 years ago, she'd held Rachel's actual tags while her friend bled out in a dusty street in Kandahar. They'd been ambushed because their intel was bad, sold out by someone they'd trusted. Rachel died asking why command hadn't sent backup. Sarah never got a straight answer, just like she wouldn't get one here. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She opened the text to find a video edited. Of course, it showed her grabbing Tyler, but not him breaking her chain first. Not him grinding the dog tag under his heel. Just her. Apparently, attacking a student without provocation. The caption read, "Crazy vet teacher assaults honor student. Share if you think she should be fired." By lunch, the video had spread through the school like wildfire. Sarah could feel the whispers following her down the hall. Principal Jenkins called her to his office, where Tyler sat with his arm in a sling he definitely didn't need, fake tears in his eyes. "She just attacked me," Tyler was saying to someone on speakerphone. "I was trying to ask a question about the assignment, and she went psycho. I think she has PTSD or something. I don't feel safe." The voice on the phone was smooth, authoritative. "Don't worry, son. I'll handle this. Jenkins, I trust you'll take appropriate action." "Of course, Mr. Morrison. Student safety is our top priority." Sarah stood in the doorway, watching the performance. Tyler caught her eye and smirked when the adults weren't looking. "Ms. Mitchell," Jenkins said, finally noticing her. "Please, sit down. We need to discuss this serious allegation." "I'll stand." Robert Morrison's voice crackled through the speaker. "Is that her, Ms. Mitchell? I'm prepared to be reasonable here. Apologize to my son. Agree to some anger management counseling, and we can move past this. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to pursue criminal charges and push for immediate termination. Your son vandalized my personal property and created a hostile classroom environment," Sarah said evenly. "I used minimum force to maintain order after he physically grabbed me." "She's lying," Tyler's voice cracked perfectly. "Dad, she hurt me." "Do you have proof of this alleged grabbing?" Morrison asked. "Because I have video evidence of you assaulting my child." Sarah thought of the edited video, of how quickly it had spread. These people had practice at this destroying teachers who didn't play ball. She wondered how many others had stood in this office, facing this same orchestrated takedown. "I want to see the full security footage from my classroom," Sarah said. Jenkins shifted uncomfortably. "Unfortunately, the cameras in that wing have been malfunctioning this week. Budget issues, you understand." Of course they were. Sarah almost smiled. In Afghanistan, she'd learned to recognize when she was walking into an ambush. The signs were always there if you knew how to read them. "I see," she said. "Am I suspended?" "Administrative leave," Jenkins said quickly. "Just until we sort this out. It's for your own protection. Really. Emotions are running high." "My protection?" Sarah looked at Tyler, who was struggling not to grin. "Of course." She left without another word. Walked to her classroom to gather her things. The hallways were nearly empty. Fifth period had started. In room 237, someone had already been there. Her desk drawers were open, papers scattered. Looking for what evidence she'd kept about their dealing, Sarah packed methodically, taking only personal items. As she reached for her jacket, she heard footsteps. Not the casual shuffle of students, purposeful, coordinated movement. Multiple individuals. The door slammed shut. Tyler stood there with 4 of his crew. No sling now. Both arms working fine. Marcus Chen, the math teacher from next door, passed by the window, saw what was happening, and kept walking. Smart man, or just another survivor in a broken system. "Thought we should have a private chat," Tyler said, cracking his knuckles. "About respect." Sarah set down her box. "Your father know you're here. My father knows I handle my own business." He stepped closer, and his boys spread out, trying to flank her. Amateur tactics. They'd probably never faced someone who'd cleared rooms in Fallujah. "Like the drug business." Tyler's face darkened. "You don't know shit. I know you're dealing in school. I know the administration looks the other way. I know you've driven out anyone who tried to stop you." Sarah kept her voice calm, watching their positions. The biggest one was favoring his left knee old injury. Another kept touching his pocket weapon. Probably a knife. "What I don't know is why." "Why?" Tyler laughed. Because I can. Because nobody in this shithole has the balls to stop me. Because my family runs this city. And you're just another nobody playing hero. He was close now. Close enough that she could smell the Adderall on his breath, see the tiny tremor in his hands. Not just dealing using. "Last chance," Tyler said. "Apologize. Publicly. Say you were wrong. That you're sorry. That you're leaving and never coming back. Do it now. And this ends clean." Sarah thought of Rachel. Of that day in Kandahar when they'd been given the same choice: apologize for following protocol. Admit fault for the ambush that wasn't their mistake. Or face consequences. Rachel had refused. It had cost her everything. "No," Tyler's face twisted. "Then we do this the hard way. Boys." They moved simultaneously, and time slowed the way it always did in combat. Sarah's training took over 8 years of muscle memory, couldn't be therapied away. The biggest one came first, telegraphing a haymaker that she slipped easily. Her palm strike to his solar plexus dropped him wheezing. The one with the knife actually pulled at brass knuckles, not a blade. She broke his wrist with an arm bar that took 2 seconds. But there were 5 of them, and she was trying not to permanently hurt children. That hesitation cost her. Someone grabbed her hair from behind Tyler, yanking her head back. Another punched her ribs. She twisted, using Tyler's grip as leverage, and threw him over her shoulder. He hit a desk hard, but bounced up. Street fight tough despite his privilege. "Hold her!" Tyler screamed. 2 of them got her arms. Tyler grabbed her hair again, used it like a handle to drag her toward the door. Sarah let them pull her, let them think they were winning, while she calculated angles and distance. In the hallway now. Other students watching from doorways, some filming, none helping. This was the moment. The title moment. She could feel it building like pressure before a storm. Tyler's friends held her arms while he wrapped her hair around his fist, pulling her head back at an unnatural angle. "Not so tough now. Are you—" He started dragging her down the hall, her knees scraping linoleum. "This is what happens when you don't know your place. When you don't respect." Sarah moved. It was beautiful in its simplicity. She went limp, dropping her weight. The sudden change threw off the 2 holding her arms. She torqued her body, using their grip as pivot points, and drove her elbows back into their ribs. As they released her, gasping, she spun into Tyler. Her hands found his shoulder joint, that sweet spot where anatomy became weakness. The pop was audible. Tyler screamed and dropped. his shoulder dislocated cleanly. The other two tried to recover, but she was already moving. Another shoulder separation. Another scream. 3 seconds. 3 dislocations. Textbook close quarters combat. Modified for non-lethal outcome. She stood in the hallway, breathing hard, surrounded by 3 crying teenagers. Other students stared in shock. Someone whispered, "Holy shit, she's like Black Widow or something." But Sarah didn't feel like a superhero. She felt like she'd failed to control herself, failed to be better than her training. She looked at Tyler writhing on the floor and saw every mistake she'd ever made in uniform. Emma Watson pushed through the crowd. "I got it all," she said quietly, holding up her phone. "The whole thing. How they cornered you, attacked first. Everything." "That won't matter," Tyler gasped from the floor. "My dad—" "Your dad's a criminal," Emma said, louder now. "And I'm done being scared of you." Sirens in the distance. Someone had called 911. Sarah knew how this would look. Trained military veteran injures 3 students. The full video wouldn't matter if the narrative was already set. She'd seen it before. Truth buried under politics and power. But something was different this time. Other students were coming forward. Phones out. "I got video too," one said. "Tyler's been terrorizing people all year," said another. A freshman Sarah didn't know added, "They sell drugs. Everyone knows, but nobody does anything because his dad controls everything." Principal Jenkins appeared, saw the scene, and his face went gray. "Everyone back to class, now." "No," Emma said, and her voice carried surprising strength. "We're done being silent. Done watching good teachers get run out because they won't play along with the Morrisons' crime family." Crime family? There it was, out in the open. Sarah watched understanding dawn on faces, students realizing they outnumbered their oppressors, finding courage in community. Tyler was loaded onto a stretcher, still threatening lawsuits and retribution. His boys limped away, escorted by paramedics. Sarah knew she should feel guilty, but all she felt was tired, bone deep, soul-aching, tired. Detective Rita Vasquez arrived with the uniforms. Sarah recognized the Marine Corps tattoo peeking out from under her sleeve, the way she carried herself. Their eyes met that instant recognition between those who'd served. "Ms. Mitchell," Rita said, "I'm going to need you to come with me." "I understand." "No," Rita said quietly. "I don't think you do." She leaned closer. "I've been investigating the Morrisons for 2 years. What happened here today might be exactly what we needed. But right now, you're in danger. Real danger. These people don't just file lawsuits." As Sarah was led away, she saw Emma organizing students, collecting videos, building evidence. Maybe she hadn't failed after all. Maybe sometimes you had to break something to show it was already broken. The dog tag pressed against her chest where she'd pinned it inside her shirt. Rachel would understand. Sometimes the hardest battles were the ones you fought at home, against enemies who wore familiar faces and spoke the right words while poisoning everything they touched. But this war was far from over. Tyler Morrison was just a soldier. His father was the general. And Sarah had just declared war on an empire built on other people's suffering. The interrogation room smelled like decades of fear and lies. Sarah sat across from Detective Rita Vasquez, who'd dropped all pretense the moment the door clicked shut. Between them lay evidence bags, Tyler's confiscated phones, bloody knuckles photos, and a thick folder marked Morrison, Confidential. "You know what pisses me off most," Rita said, sliding Sarah a cup of actual good coffee. "I've got 13 teachers in therapy. 4 who left the state, and 1 who tried to eat her service weapon, all because they stood up to the Morrison family. She tapped the folder. But you're different. You fought back. Sarah touched her ribs where Tyler's boys had landed punches. Fought back, and probably lost my career. Maybe. Or maybe you just started something. Rita opened the folder, revealing surveillance photos, Robert Morrison with known cartel members, Tyler at drug exchanges, school board members taking envelopes. 2 years I've been building this case. 2 years of watching kids die while their parents think Roosevelt High is just going through a rough patch. Why hasn't anyone? Because Robert Morrison owns this city. Construction contracts, union kickbacks, political donations. Rita showed a photo of Morrison at the mayor's fundraiser. His son's drug ring. That's just junior varsity. Training wheels for the family business. Sarah studied the evidence. You need someone inside. I need someone they already hate, someone they'll come after hard. Make mistakes. Rita leaned back. Emma Watson came to me 3 times this year. Smart girl, but scared. Lost her dad to Tyler's product. She mentioned that. Did she mention she's been documenting everything? That girl's got 2 years of evidence hidden somewhere. But she won't trust cops. Can't blame her. Morrison has people everywhere. The door opened. A uniformed officer leaned in. Detective, the Morrison lawyers are here. They're demanding, tell them to wait. Rita didn't look away from Sarah. Here's the deal. You walk out of here. No charges. Clear self-defense. But the Morrisons will come for you. When they do, we'll be watching. You're using me as bait. I'm giving you a chance to finish this right. An hour later, Sarah walked into the afternoon rain. Her car had been towed, slashed tires and death threats spray-painted on the hood made it evidence. She called an Uber, gave Emma Watson's address from the student directory. The house was a narrow row house in Kensington, bars on the windows, paint peeling like dead skin. Emma answered on the 3rd knock, eyes red from crying. Ms. Mitchell, how did you? We need to talk. Emma's room was a shrine to investigation. Wall covered in string connecting photos. Dates, names. A detailed map of Roosevelt High marked with drug exchange points. File boxes labeled by date. This wasn't teenage obsession. This was systematic documentation by someone who'd learned the system wouldn't save her. Started the day after Dad died, Emma said quietly. The hospital said overdose. But I knew. Dad was clean for 3 years. He was going to testify about unsafe conditions at Morrison's construction site. She pulled out a laptop, fingers flying over keys, the screen filled with videos, Tyler making deals, counting money, meeting with older men in expensive cars. This one's from last week. She clicked play. Tyler's voice. Crystal clear. My dad says the school's perfect cover. Who's gonna suspect honor students? Besides, we got Jenkins by the balls, old pervert likes them young, and we got pictures. Sarah's stomach turned. Principal Jenkins. Why do you think he protects them? Emma pulled up another file. But that's not the worst part. The worst part was a spreadsheet. Names, dates, amounts. But one column made Sarah's blood freeze. Hot shots administered. They kill people who might talk, Emma whispered. Make it look like overdoses. Mike did Ms. Johnson's brother, that sophomore who was going to report them last year. Sarah's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then recognized Marcus Chen's voice. Sarah. Thank God. Listen. Tyler's out of the hospital. His dad bailed him. They're planning something tonight. I heard them. The line went dead. Emma was already packing the laptop. We need to go. Now. Too late. Through the window, Sarah saw two SUVs pull up. Not teenagers this time, grown men with prison tattoos and dead eyes. Back door, Sarah said. They ran through the kitchen, burst into an alley that stank of piss and desperation. Rain hammered down. Behind them, the front door splintered. This way! Emma knew these streets. Ducked through a gap in a fence. They emerged in another alley, but footsteps echoed from both ends. Fire escape! Sarah boosted Emma up, followed as boots pounded closer. They climbed fast, Emma clutching her laptop bag like a lifeline. The roof was a maze of satellite dishes and pigeon coops. They ran, leaping to the next building. Emma stumbled, nearly dropping the laptop. Sarah caught her, pulled her behind an air unit as flashlights swept the darkness. 6 men spread out, searching systematically. Professionals. Give us the girl and her computer, one called in accented English. You can walk away, soldier. This ain't your war. Sarah felt Emma trembling beside her. In her pocket, her phone vibrated. Rita, en route, 2 minutes. 2 minutes might as well be 2 years. Sarah grabbed a piece of rebar from the roof debris. When I move, you run. Get to the street. They'll kill you. No, they'll try. She burst from cover. Rebar spinning. The first man went down, knee destroyed. She rolled, came up swinging, caught another in the temple. But these weren't scared kids. They fought with cartel efficiency. A fist caught her ribs already bruised and she gasped. Another grabbed her arm, twisting through the chaos. She saw Emma running for the roof door. Good. Then Tyler Morrison stepped out of that same door, blocking the girl's path. Going somewhere. He looked deranged, shoulder still fucked up but high on something that masked the pain. You little bitch, you and your documentation, you think you're gonna bring down my family. He grabbed Emma's laptop bag. They struggled. Sarah broke free from her attacker, sprinted toward them. But Tyler had already wrested the bag away. He held it over the roof's edge. 6 years of evidence, he laughed. Oops. The laptop fell, smashing on concrete 40 feet below. Emma screamed, but then she smiled. You think I'm stupid. That was a decoy. The real files are already uploaded. Cloud storage, asshole. Your daddy should have taught you about technology. Tyler's face went purple. He grabbed Emma by the throat. Sarah didn't remember crossing the distance. One moment she was 20 feet away. The next, she had Tyler in a chokehold. Bicep crushing his carotid. He dropped, unconscious in 3 seconds. But the cartel soldiers were closing in. Sarah pushed Emma behind her, ready for the last fight. Then the roof door exploded open. FBI agents in tactical gear flooded out. Weapons trained. Nobody fucking move. Rita Vasquez walked through like she owned the place. Gentlemen, you're under arrest for conspiracy, attempted murder, and about 40 other charges. Oh, and Tyler, she nudged him with her boot as he groaned back to consciousness. Your dad's already in custody. Pulled him off the 9th hole at his country club. He cried like a bitch. The aftermath came in waves. Sarah gave her statement while an EMT checked her ribs. Emma uploaded her real files backed up in 3 different cloud services to the FBI database. By morning, it was the biggest drug bust in Philadelphia school's history. But the best part came a week later. Sarah stood in Principal Jenkins's office, former office, since he was in federal custody watching workmen remove his nameplate. The new principal, Dr. Patricia Williams was a former Marine who'd lost her son to opioids. "They want you back," Dr. Williams said. "The school board, the new, non-criminal one, voted unanimously. If you want it." Sarah looked out at the hallway. Students walked differently now, heads higher, voices louder. Emma had started a support group for those who'd lost family to drugs. Marcus Chen openly wore a "Snitches Save Lives" t-shirt. "I want it." Her first day back, Sarah found her classroom decorated with a banner, "Welcome back, Ms. Mitchell." 62 signatures, including some of Tyler's former crew who'd agreed to testify in exchange for rehab. She touched Rachel's dog tag, then began, "Who can tell me what real courage looks like?" Every hand went up. That afternoon, the news broke. Robert Morrison, facing life in federal prison, had flipped on the cartel. Tyler Morrison, looking at 25 years, had agreed to testify against his father. The entire network was collapsing. Emma stayed after class. "Miss Mitchell, I wanted to say thank you, not just for saving me, for showing me that fighting back is possible." "You saved yourself. I just helped a little." "No." Emma pulled out a photo of her father, smiling. "You gave me something I'd lost. Hope." As the girl left, Sarah sat in her empty classroom, sunlight streaming through windows that no longer had bars. She'd come here to build instead of destroy, and nearly got destroyed herself. But maybe that was the lesson. Sometimes you had to fight to create peace. Sometimes you had to destroy corruption to build something clean. Her phone buzzed. Rita Vasquez. "Thought you should know. Tyler Morrison wants to see you. Says he has something to say. Your choice." Sarah thought about it through the afternoon, through dinner in her small apartment, through the sleepless hours when phantom sand still haunted her dreams. The next morning, she drove to the Federal Detention Center. Tyler sat across thick glass, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his frame. The arrogance was gone. He looked like what he was, a scared kid who'd made terrible choices. "Why?" Sarah asked. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Then my mom left when I was 12. Said she couldn't watch what my dad was becoming. I thought if I became like him, he'd—" His voice cracked. "He'd love me." "Did he?" "He loved money, power. I was just another employee." Tyler met her eyes. "I'm sorry. About your friend's tag. About everything. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry." Sarah studied this broken boy who'd terrorized a school. "You've got 25 years to figure out who you really are. Don't waste them. Will you—" He stopped, swallowed. "Would you write to me? Sometimes I want to learn how to be different." Sarah thought of redemption, of the long road from destruction to construction. "Ask me again in 5 years. Show me you mean it." Outside, Philadelphia hummed with life. Sarah drove back to Roosevelt High, where Dr. Williams had approved her proposal for self-defense classes, where Emma was organizing a memorial for overdose victims, where teachers could finally teach without fear. The war wasn't over. It never really ended. But today, in this place, they'd won a battle, and Sarah Mitchell, warrior teacher, was just getting started. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the same classroom where it all began, but everything had changed. The horseshoe of desks remained, but now they were filled with engaged faces. On the wall hung photos Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, and newest addition Marcus Watson, Emma's father, with the caption, Community Hero, Ms. Mitchell. A hand shot up. Jamie Rodriguez, former member of Tyler's crew, now clean and college-bound. Can you tell us again about the day you stood up? Sarah smiled. Which time, the day in this classroom, or every day since? The students laughed real laughter, not the sharp edges of fear disguised as humor. Through the window, she could see the memorial garden Emma had organized, where families left flowers for those lost to the drug trade. 37 names on polished granite, including Marcus Watson. Her phone buzzed. A text from Tyler Morrison, sent through the federal system's monitored communication. Finished my GED, starting college courses next month. Thank you for believing people can change. She didn't respond. Their agreement stood. 5 years to prove himself. But she felt something like hope, fragile as spring ice after class. Emma waited in the hallway, acceptance letter in hand. University of Pennsylvania, she beamed. Criminal justice major. I'm going to be a prosecutor. Your dad would be proud. He is proud. I feel it. Emma hugged her fiercely. Thank you for showing me how to fight the right way. That evening, Sarah sat in her apartment, 2 dog tags catching the light, Rachel's and her teaching medal from Roosevelt High. She'd learned something these past months. Destruction and construction weren't opposites. Sometimes you had to tear down to build up. Sometimes the greatest act of creation was refusing to let corruption stand. Tomorrow, she'd teach another class, face another challenge, build another life. Tonight, she was at peace. The war continued, but she'd found her battlefield, and she was winning. One student at a time.